Sneakers and Cleats, the podcast.
Welcome back to the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. This is Thursday, February 27th. This is episode 175. I'm Matt Roy. This is Chuck McIntyre. That is Luis. That's Bob over there. Luis trying to stick his bad arm in. He's like,
Captain Hook.
Still recovering from the shoulder surgery. It's all right. Glad to have you back. Got some stuff going on today, guys. The Spurs suck and the Cowboys suck too. So we'll talk about both of them. Figure we'll just start this out on a good note here. As always, remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel, both News 4, Fox SA, download, rate, review the podcast version if you're so inclined. The Spurs are basically completely bottomed out here on the rodeo road trip. Now 3-8 on the rodeo road trip after back-to-back losses to the Pelicans and a really bad loss to the Rockets last night. Not as close as the final score indicated there. That ended up being a 12-point game. It was a 30-point game at one point before the Rockets put in their bench guys. So they also only played Stephon Castle 12 minutes on Tuesday in the second Pelicans game. And so seeing a lot of uproar on Twitter because of that one.
We'll have to do a deeper dive on that too, because it's like this sometimes the selective anger by Spurs fans always astonishes me a little bit.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get to that. And then also one tweet that I saw from our friend David Chancellor, who says that Spurs fans are becoming apathetic, which is probably the worst thing that they could become at this point. So we'll talk about that. Plus, we'll get into the Cowboys today. It's Combine Week. It's going on right now. Today's defense and tight ends. I love Combine Week just because I love everything about the NFL draft. So it's close to Christmas for me. Also, some interesting comments from Stephen Jones saying that they're going to be selectively aggressive, quote unquote. What offseason moves could they be making? The latest on Osa Odigizua, if they're going to spend some money to re-sign their big defensive tackle in the middle. Plus, one well-sourced insider saying that the Cowboys have spoken to the Titans about trading up for the number 1 pick. So can't get any more interesting than that. So let's get right into it. Let's start with the Spurs, as we usually do. They fall to the Rockets last night, 118-106. Now 3-8 on the rodeo road trip. I'm including the 2 Austin games in that just because they're technically home games, but they're not really. They've basically completely bottomed out since Victor Wembanyama and Coach Pop went out. I just saw right before I came out here that Coach Pop addressed the team today for the first time since his stroke and told them that he will not be coming back. That was from Chris B. Haynes over at TNT. We're not going to get into that today because we spent a whole half hour talking about it on Monday. But what do you make of the performance in recent games here, Chuck?
Well, obviously disappointed like crazy over the results in the New Orleans games, especially, right? You can't let the worst team in the West beat you twice in back-to-back games. And, I felt like for the most part, they were in control of both of those games. And then it just wasn't happening down the stretch. The first game in New Orleans, late third quarter, early fourth quarter, it just looked like it was going to be a layup drill for the other team. And it looked completely uncommon based on what you'd seen in that, the rest of the game. In the second game, this is to the Steph Castle point, I see Spurs fans, he only played 11 minutes. Well, did you see what he did in those 11 minutes or what he didn't do? I mean, he had 4 fouls, 4 turnovers. His plus-minus was -16 in 11 minutes of work. So, I get it that you want to play your younger guys and let them grow up. But at some point, they're not out of this play-in spot, although this week has certainly put another nail in the coffin. But
they're pretty much
I don't know
out
what
now,
you want Mitch Johnson to do at this point. I mean, it's not just as simple as we got to let guys play and grow up. I mean, if you're me and you want to see somebody try to make a run or push at this playoff thing, then you got to go with who's ever rolling that night.
Yeah, I mean,
and then the Rockets game last night was a disaster.
Yeah, the Rockets game, I don't even want to talk about it. Everybody was bad last night against the Rockets until basically the last 4 minutes of the game. It's giving me thoughts and deja vu about the last 2 years. It's just a team that we kept chalking up as needs to learn how to win. I know they know how to win now because they've done more of it this year than they have in the past 2 years. But now it's almost like I'm just exhaustion. They've been put through so much this year, and they have been like, you know what, we're just going to go out there and try and play ball and not really care about getting better. It just reminds me of a team that we've watched the past 2 years that won 22 games each year, and it's It's saddening, to be honest.
It is, and maddening too, right?
Yeah.
Because I think for me, look, I know we've said this a million times on this show before, but it always bears repeating. They're better than they were last year, right? But even with all of the challenges this year, I would have thought, with Victor being out of the lineup now too, this is going to create opportunity for somebody. Guys are playing whether they want to be here next year or not, or, whether the team wants them here or not next year. There are jobs at stake this time of year, whether you make the playoffs or not. So, again, I'm really just disappointed. Those New Orleans games, this was a chance to kind of end this thing on a positive note. Go down, get a couple games that you're supposed to win, and then, let's see what they can do the rest of the season. And then now looking at the schedule, I think they only play 10 teams, if I'm not mistaken, that have a losing record.
Yeah, they have a brutal schedule.
Yeah. So, it's certainly not going to get any easier, but I'm with you in a lot of ways too. I don't enjoy it being February and thinking, geez, I got 5 or 6 more weeks of this where my interest is going to wane pretty quickly.
Well, think about the teams that they've lost to here. They lost to the Pelicans twice. The Pistons are a decent team, so I'll give them some credit for that one. They barely beat the Wizards, they lost to the Magic. They lost to the Hornets, who have lost their last 3 games by a combined score of like 80 points. Just horrible team. And they barely beat the Hawks, and then they got their butts kicked by the Grizzlies. It's like you lose to these teams that you should have beaten. If you're a team on the rise and you're a team that has these young potential stars, these young players who have that potential, you need to beat those teams, and they haven't. And I think it goes a little bit to hear from what Mitch Johnson said on Tuesday about the mental fatigue that this team has right now. So let's hear from Mitch Johnson. Sorry, Luis, I know I have you doing like 3 things right now. Let's hear from Mitch Johnson what he said on Tuesday about all these losses racking up.
I do think that this team has done a heck of a job with dealing with a lot of unforeseen circumstances this year. I think a level of mental fatigue would be
Luis, can you
restart
that?
Assessment. I do not think that. I do think
there we go.
That this team has done a heck of a job with dealing with a lot of unforeseen circumstances this year. I think a level of mental fatigue would be a fair assessment. I do not think that is a reason why some of those things are happening, which you alluded to in terms of the turnovers and the gameplay. But our margin for error is just 0 right now.
I mean, it's fair, though. Mental fatigue of all the things that they've dealt with so far. Victor being just wrenched out of their lives right now because of not out of their lives, but out of their team because of this DVT in his shoulder. Pop, all the hope of him coming back yanked from you in a second. Like, it has to take a toll. And especially for a guy like De'Aaron Fox, who hasn't played a home game in a month and a half.
That's
literally a month
and a half. You feel bad for that guy, right? And then, again, credit to him playing with a jacked up hand too, shooting hand. So when he has an off night shooting, it's like, well, we're going to have to give the guy a break. He's at least out there and earning a paycheck every week when his hand needs surgery. So, and Charles Bassey's now banged up, and you're having to go with Bismack, who's, on a second 10-day contract. There's a lot of challenges right now, and, it feels like it's starting to overwhelm them.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Spurs just tweeted out a statement as well. Statement from San Antonio Spurs head coach Greg Popovich just tweeted out right now. So that's actually not what it is, but go ahead and pop that up real quick, Luis. So this is what Shams Charania just tweeted out moments ago. This is ESPN's insider. He said, Greg Popovich held an emotional in-person meeting today with the Spurs players who were all able to see him for the first time since his stroke in November. Sources tell ESPN Popovich will not return as coach this season, and his NBA future remains uncertain as he recovers. Then moments ago, literally a minute ago, the Spurs just tweeted out a statement from San Antonio Spurs head coach Greg Popovich. I've decided not to return to the sidelines this season. Mitch Johnson and his staff have done a wonderful job, and the resolve and professionalism the players have shown sticking together during a challenging season has been outstanding. I will continue to focus on my health with the hope that I can return to coaching in the future. So that's the latest, literally just popped up, not on the rundown, but that's what we have right now from the Spurs. You're hearing this for the first time. I was reading it for the first time. Initial thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to some people yesterday about where all this was, and I'm still trying to process a lot of it too. But um, you know, I'm glad that Pop was able to have that moment with the team, and I'm sure the team was too. To try to put all this to bed, the rumors, what's going on, all of that. So, you know, but I don't think there's anything newsy here, right? I mean, that's
well, the only thing newsy is the last sentence. I hope to return to the sidelines. That's the thing that I think all of us are questioning. Does he still think he can come back? And right now, it looks like it would appear I will continue to focus on my health with the hope that I can return to coaching in the future. We don't know what role that's going to be. It's obviously leaves a lot of room for interpretation, which is what we do. But still, it's. I think it provides a little bit of hope, at least for
and hopefully
for everybody
trending,
that we haven't seen the last of him on the sidelines.
And I think he must be trending in the upward direction if he was able to meet with the team today. But again, it's been 3 months since he had the initial diagnosis, and certainly you hope that he's able to do anything that happens in his future is on his terms.
I also think it's interesting that, at least according to the Shams tweet, and I don't know if this is completely 100% accurate or not, that this is the first time that Greg Popovich has addressed the team in person, that they have seen him since his stroke. That says a lot about the severity of what the stroke was and the severity of his health.
Agree. I mean, I think we mentioned that the other day. I mean, there've been no public appearances, and even his rehab has
pop that
been
up, Luis.
really kept on the down low. So, again, I just hope he's moving in the right direction. And even if he doesn't coach, I'm sure he's going to be able to add some value as to what's going on. I mean, this is still very much his team and his franchise.
Again, this is the statement that was just put out by the Spurs just a couple of minutes ago, saying, and this is actually from Greg Popovich through the Spurs. So this is now the second time we've heard from Greg Popovich via a statement. Last one was in December, saying that his rehab was going well and nobody wanted him on the sidelines more than his doctors, who didn't want to
Right.
do his rehab with him because he's less than coachable. So that was last time we heard from him. This now the second time. And so this is what we were looking for on what, Saturday? This is the kind of statement that we were looking for on Saturday from him or from the Spurs, confirming the report that from Shams saying, yes, he will not be back this year. And he's still continuing on his recovery. So it's a little odd that it's 5 days later, but this is what we were all looking for.
Amen.
Let's get back to the regularly scheduled programming here. So I saw an interesting tweet this morning from our friend David Chancellor, who, after the loss last night, obviously he works mornings, so he watched some of it, I assume, and then went to sleep. He tweeted this out, quote, "I've seen the evolution of Spurs fans over the years, but this season is something different. Not mad or sad, something much worse, apathetic. Timeline is filled with, quote, I gave up in the first quarter, or, quote, I didn't even watch." What does that say about where this team is right now after coming into the season with so much hope? Like, I think all of us thought this was a 40-win team, 41-win team, and then now you see them basically just reverting back to what we've seen the past 2 years, and apathy starting to creep into Spurs fans.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little interesting, right? I mean, again, we talked about all the challenges that they've had, and I can certainly understand the frustration of Spurs fans, but it's until they start winning on the reg again, it's tough to go back to a fan base that has seen what it's supposed to look like 5 different times.
Mm-hmm.
And it could have been a couple of other times too. So, again, I can't blame people for where they're at with what they see on the court. I mean, I get frustrated too. Sometimes I get pissed off watching some of this stuff go on. So I don't know. It's all going to come down. It always does, right? If you're winning every night, the place will be packed. Everybody's talking about you in a good way. And when you lose, nobody wants to talk about you. If they do talk about you, it's not in a good way. And there's not a lot of people that are either watching on TV or watching in person. So
yeah, I mean, you want
nothing
your
new.
When a team has won so much for so long, you want them to continue winning. And now it feels like you want them to just do something. Like, Spurs fans are just waiting, like, okay, can we just stop sucking, please? And now they're going, since this season you came in with hope, and now they suck again. Because I think they didn't suck there for a while. They were, right. I mean, heck, they were 19-18. They were above 500 37 games into the season, which is huge. And now they've doing quick math in my head here, 5-14 in their last 19 games, and they're done. They're completely out of it. And so I feel like when you start like that and you just have so much hope, and now you see that it's just like the wheels have fallen off once again, you're like, well, screw it, man. I'm done watching this team this year.
Hey, there's this comment goes right along with what you're saying. It's from Val, who's in the south of France.
Oh, cool. Hey,
Comment allez-vous, mon ami?
there you go.
Wow.
I was going to say bonsoir or bonjour, but
Val says, I'm up at 2 a.m., even when Wemby is not playing. And let's be honest, these guys do not deserve my effort.
last night they certainly didn't. That's for sure. One, I respect that you're watching and that you're a hardcore Spurs fan in France, waking up at 2 a.m. to watch a team that doesn't have the French phenom on it right now. So that's tip of the cap to you there. Also, thank you for watching. And second, I completely agree. Like it's hard to watch this team right now. It's even 3 weeks ago with all the excitement of the De'Aaron Fox trade, and you were like, this team might make a run. This team might do something this year. Yes, with the foresight that this trade is more for the next 2, 3, 5 years, you still thought you were going to see something representative of what this team could be this season. And now you're seeing what this team was this season, which stinks. So.
Amen. Yeah, I don't know what they need to do. Again, I would love to see maximum effort for 48 minutes. And I think they're good at that for large swatches of the game, but there are other times when there's complete breakdowns. I mean, I can't get some of those fourth quarter breakdowns out of my head the other night where it was just like, this doesn't even look like a little league ball game right now, the way they were just giving up punties at the rim.
And so is this trashing any ability of Mitch to be somebody in the NBA? I mean, how much of the blame do you put on Mitch?
I don't really, because I can't imagine how difficult this season has been for Mitch. Like, you get thrust into a role that you might not have been prepared completely for. Your best player goes down. Your mentor goes down. You just go through all of this tumultuous, probably the most tumultuous season that we've seen here in a while since the Kawhi stuff probably went down.
Yeah, agree. I mean, you got egos in the locker room, right? You got alpha dogs. You got guys that are trying to stay on the roster, and you have a dynamic of who's going to play, right? And all these different rotations. Does Mitch bear some of the blame? I mean, if we're looking to pass him on, of course he's there, right? He's running the team. But I think ultimately it comes down to guys putting the ball in the hole, giving max effort, and doesn't matter who you're out there playing with or who's playing. The job is to try to get victories. So.
Mitch has in no way been perfect, but I don't think that the brunt of this falls on him.
And
I don't think that his coaching future in the NBA is decided one that this will fall on his legacy.
Exactly on cue. Gene chimes in. It's time for a new coach.
It might be. You just read Pop hopes to return in the future, so we'll see if at this time next year we're talking about Greg Popovich being back on the sidelines.
Yeah, I mean, I have hardcore Spurs friends, and one of them in particular is looking for a coaching change. And I mean, it's okay to see it differently. I just don't see it. Not with everything else that's been going on.
You're not getting one this year. Like Mitch has the rest of the season.
Yeah, most definitely. He's certainly earned that right. Obviously, and maybe earned the right to have it if it need be going forward. In my opinion,
0.00001% chance that unless Mitch gets struck by lightning, someone else is going to be the head coach of this team this year.
Tom Guerrero is in the house.
Hi, Tom.
Hello, Tom.
Tom says Mitch has lost this team. No enthusiasm.
I think it's just that they're exhausted. I really do. I think it's, and he said it's mental exhaustion from what they've been going through the past few weeks. I want to talk about Steph playing 12 minutes real quick on Tuesday, which is something we alluded to a little bit earlier. On Tuesday, Steph Castle played a total of 12 minutes, which I think was the least on the team of anybody who played in that game. This is what Mitch had to say about it after the game.
Yeah, that first 8 or 9 minutes, I believe, of the game, we didn't make us up. That group really got it rolling, and we just kind of were going to let them ride the hot hand. So the first half rotations probably were a little unique, just from even what we were expecting to do, because we didn't want to stop our own momentum in that sense. And then, yeah, there was just a few mistakes that were made that, in a game that was close and going back and forth, we needed as much solid basketball as we could get. It was just a decision that I made on a few different situations.
I mean,
All
I'm
right.
not there.
So your take on 12 minutes before I give mine.
Well, I mean, I think he said it. Their margin for error, right, is next to none. If you're trying to make a push to get the 10 seed, and God, I hope that's what the goal is, right? I don't want to sit here and talk about ping pong balls and any of that other nonsense when there's 5, weeks or whatever there is left to go in the season. So he's looking for somebody to give him a spark, to give him some juice. And, it just did not happen with the bench the other night. And then coincidentally against the Rockets last night, it was the starters that couldn't get it done. So, this is tough, right? He's trying to do everything he can, and you're not going to always paint a Rembrandt, but I give him credit for at least having the cojones to make a move where maybe it's not popular with Spurs fans when they want to see the young guy grow up.
I love it, man. Bench his ass. Get it. If you're going to come in and turn the ball over, then sit down. Like that's how coaches coach. Like I don't understand. I get people being like, Steph Castle needs to play better. Steph Castle needs to get 30 minutes a night, 35 minutes a night to help his development. Yeah, if he's coming in, turn the ball over 6 times, and he's hurting your team, no, bench him. That's what coaches do.
You know what? You said that a heck of a lot better than me. But I mean, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Sit his ass down.
How are you minus 16 in 11 minutes of work? I mean, that's
that's
a lot.
If you turn the ball over, if you give up offensive rebounds, if you're not doing what your coach coaches you to do, sit the hell down. That's what coaches are supposed to do. I love it. I love from Mitch doing that.
And he's a rookie, so he's going to learn that, we're going to have to learn some of this stuff as we go along. So,
and guess what happened last night? He played 30 minutes and didn't turn the ball over.
Right, and he was good last night.
I mean, the team as a whole sucked, but he was fine.
He actually had a positive plus minus last night to show you how well he played.
Well, some of those came in garbage time, but he played because he was playing with.
Look at everybody else's.
I'm just saying, I loved it. Yeah. I loved the move on Tuesday night. Yeah. Like if someone is playing like crap, especially a young player, like you're not going to do that to Chris Paul. Chris Paul's in his 19th year in the league. He's going to do what he's going to do. Steph Castle is a rookie in this league and has the potential to be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander if you are listening to what Don is spitting out. That's what he thinks. Bench him. Like you're here to coach him. He is not the coach. Players are not the coaches in this league. Players are the players. Coaches are the coaches. You're here to coach your players. And if he's not doing what he's coached to do, sit his ass down. And that's what he did. He came out. He didn't turn the ball over yesterday. I loved it. Let's get to the Cowboys stuff. That went a little longer on that than I planned to, but the breaking Greg Popovich news was needed to get in here. So Cowboys going to be selectively aggressive this year, according to in this free agency period, according to Stephen Jones. So let's actually hear that first, and then we'll get into a little bit of the combo.
But we're going to look at everything we can. We're going to be selectively aggressive. We obviously, there's things in this league you have to, you have certain amount of resources they allow you to have, and we'll look at that. But we're going to try to improve our football team. We're going to improve our football team, and we expect to have success next year.
When Steven said, we're going to try to improve our football team. Wait, we're not going to try. We're going to improve our football team. It reminded me of Yoda. There is no try. There is just do. They need to improve the football team. And when you hear them say selectively aggressive, I think it's just the most Cowboys thing ever. Like, let's hedge all of our bets. Let's make sure that everyone is talking about us still saying you putting the word aggressive in there selectively is the qualifier.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you wonder if they've got maybe a few guys in mind that they're going to target and then really try to, push their assets in on that in terms of finances. I don't know. It's going to be a real fascinating time. You're seeing what they do during the draft and how they handle free agency, and then who do they bring back? I was thinking about this. Of the 3 guys that I think they really are concentrating on, Odigizua, Jordan Lewis, and Rico.
Yeah.
Like, who's the number one guy that you got to have back?
It's Osa. I think it's Osa between those 3.
I think so too, only because of how thin they are at defensive line. But, and I like Rico's game too, but how much is he going to get in the open market?
There's a lot of plus
and then Jordan Lewis. I mean, guy, what a stud he was. He's always been that guy for the Cowboys when healthy.
Well, there's 2 things to look at here. This draft class is historically deep in 2 positions: defensive tackle and running back. I think I was listening to Mel the other day. Mel Kiper of ESPN said that there's 36 draftable graded running backs in this class. That's ridiculous, which means you don't need one at 12. Even if you want Ashton Genty or Amari Hampton out of North Carolina, you can get one a little bit later. Defensive tackle. If there is a stone cold lead pipe lock at 12 to get a defensive tackle, grab one. But 12 is somewhere that you can maybe get a receiver. Maybe Tet McMillan's still there. Luther Burden is still there. Some people like that are still there. It's interesting where they sit in the draft, and it's interesting where they sit when it comes to free agency, because they have a lot of free agents, but none of them are like that over the top, CeeDee Lamb type free agent. It's not a T Higgins type free agent. It's Osa Odigizua. How much do you and I think they have a budget for Odigizua. This is our max dollar. Do we go a little bit above that because of how poor we are on the defensive line? That's what I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
When it comes to selectively aggressive, though, that's where you could see something like that happening. Does he mean selectively aggressive with our own guys? Does he mean selectively aggressive with re-signing Micah and maybe Deron Bland? Does he mean going to get a big name in free agency? I would say probably not on the last one, but it leaves a lot for interpretation when you hear a comment like that from Stephen Jones.
That's going to be fun. We got the combine this week. We got local guys working out, getting ready for the NFL draft. I love this time of year. I'm like you.
Yeah, this is the best. If they were, what are the biggest needs for the Cowboys right now as we look at free agency ahead of the draft?
D-line for sure. Got to have another wide receiver, probably another guy that can really make plays. I mean, they've got decent receivers. They need somebody to go alongside 88. And I mean, who's going to back up Dak? I mean, going to be able to afford Cooper Rush. There's a lot of things going through everybody's mind. And then at Dak's age, I mean, and then coming off of last year too, is it frugal to think that you're not going to need somebody who needs to be really good back there? Because is he going to be able to finish a season?
Looking at something else that he said during that impromptu press conference that Stephen Jones said, is that he was going to draft a quarterback probably. Like, that's something that they're looking at in the draft, is when you're paying Dak Prescott $60 million a year, you can't pay Cooper Rush $7 million, and you can't pay his name is skipping my head out of my head. The third string quarterback.
Trey Lance?
Yeah, Trey Lance.
Sorry.
Thank you. Sorry.
I was thinking about what I was going to say to counterpunch you.
No, I have a brain fart right now because I'm still getting over a cold. My brain's not working. But anyway, so yeah, you can't pay him $5 million either. Like, you have to skimp on the backup quarterback when Dak is your quarterback, because you're paying him $60 million a year. So I thought that was interesting as well, that they're going to look at drafting a quarterback this year to back up Dak.
I would hope, and if you're Cooper Rush too, maybe you get an offer from somebody else, but I think the corporate knowledge of being in Dallas, that would behoove him to, he's had his most success when he's been a Dallas Cowboy.
The most recent mock drafts have the Cowboys taking Ashton Genty or Omarion Hampton, who is the running back out of North Carolina. Some people have that, 1A, 1B when it comes to running backs in this draft class. Ashton Genty, according to Mel Kiper, his latest mock draft is going to the Raiders at 6, and then Omarion Hampton at 12. I believe that's right off the top of my head, but I don't know if drafting a running back is the best idea in round 1.
I'm with you. I mean, nothing against the position. It's obviously very important on a football team, but with as many as there are in the draft, to me, it always comes down to you have to get the best available player. And if there's that many D linemen in this draft too, like, I know I couldn't believe, I think I saw somewhere where a guy, last year they only had 15 guys in the entire draft rated as a first round grade. Mm-hmm. This year they have 24 D linemen alone.
Yeah.
I mean, that's stupid.
I mean, the depth of the D line in this draft is completely ridiculous. And the same with the running back, which is why I wouldn't take a running back this year in the first round. There's some drafts where, like, Bijan Robinson got taken at number 8. That wasn't a very good running back draft, but you've seen Isaiah Pacheco's get drafted in the 4th round, and you've seen guys later on. Yes, the Cowboys need that bell cow. They proved last year that they needed that number 1 back, and especially if they're not going to sign Rico Dowdle, you want to go cheap on running back. You're going to need to draft somebody who you think can be the bell cow. So I get the thought process behind Hampton or Genty or one of these top guys going to the Cowboys at number 12, but I just don't think it's worth that. However, they don't have a 4th round pick because of the trade for Mingo. So that's usually where you would look, maybe a running back right there. So maybe they're going to have to pick 3rd or 5th round for a running back. There's just a lot of things there. I just don't know if using your number 1 pick is the straw that stirs the drink there. Last thing I want to get to before we get out of here. Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk was on a Dallas morning show this week and said basically that the Cowboys have called Tennessee about inquiring about moving up to the number 1 pick in the draft. It's interesting for a couple of reasons, because typically when you see a team trade for number 1, it's because they want a quarterback. This year, there is not a quarterback worth trading up to number 1 for. Shedeur Sanders, everyone's going to link them and the Cowboys because of Dion. Cam Ward, Incarnate Word, great. To Washington State, to Miami, now probably the best quarterback in this draft, 1A and 1B with him and Shedeur Sanders. The only way I can think of that making sense is if they trade Micah Parsons for the number 1 pick to select Abdul Carter, who would then be the heir apparent to Micah Parsons, just so they don't have to pay Micah Parsons.
I like the way you think, man.
Well, that's the only thing that makes sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is fascinating to me. Like, to me, if you're the Cowboys where you're at, and if there are that many running backs and defensive linemen in this draft, don't you trade down at 12?
Yeah, that would
to
make
get
more sense
another
to me.
first-round pick or to get another second-round pick or do something. That's what I would do. I mean, they need bodies, and they need bodies that are working under rookie contracts.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I trading up to 1 makes sense only in that scenario for me, because Abdul Carter, to me, is the number 1 guy in this draft. Yes, Travis Hunter can play 2 positions, and he's all the rage right now because of his hype, and because of how good he is. He's phenomenal. And I don't want to denigrate Travis Hunter. He just won the Heisman Trophy because he's an absolute wonder human being and football player. However, I would say that Abdul Carter would be who I would take.
Me too.
If I had the number 1 pick in the draft. And that's the only way that makes sense to me, that the Cowboys don't give up future 1s, because if you're trading from 12 to 1, you're giving up this year's 1 and next year's 1 and the year after that's 1. If you don't want to give all that up, you give up Micah Parsons in a 2 this year. You get the number 1 pick in the draft. You draft Abdul Carter. You save yourself $30 million against the cap.
I like your idea.
Hey, man.
Although the cap just went up to a bunch of millions. So I think it's all going to go to Micah Parsons.
Yeah,
that's the hope. Anyway.
Yet the Cowboys will probably say they still have no money. $279.2 million in the cap this year. And they're like, no, we're poor, man. Anything?
I'm just sad about Nick Chubb.
What happened to Nick Chubb?
There's rumors about him being on the move, right?
Yeah, he's gonna test see if anybody will pay him in free agency.
I don't understand how Browns fans are still fans of the team. I really don't.
It is really tough right now. They don't call it the sadness factory for anything.
Yeah.
Well, I was just listening to something this morning that the Browns are thinking about drafting a quarterback at number 2, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, whoever it is. And it's like, yeah, because you have $150 in dead money, $150 million in dead money, basically, for Deshaun Watson over the next 3 years.
It really, salary cap isn't a problem for him right now. They've worked that out pretty well. It just bringing in the right guys is the thing now. It's really, they're not really having a salary.
Well, I mean, it's not good when you basically have $50 million of dead money each year over the next 3 years because of a quarterback who doesn't know how to throw the ball down the field.
They've done a whole lot of good work to try on the money side to make up for that mistake, but we are where we are.
Sadness factory.
Is Myles Garrett going to be on the team next year?
Doesn't look like it, but hopefully we can get a hell of a lot for him.
Yeah.
Trade him to the
I would think
Broncos.
you would be able to.
Trade him to the Ravens for Justin Tucker. That's get another one of those on your team. Anyway, allegedly. Sorry. Anyway, that's all we got for you today on the Sneakers Cleats podcast. Remember to download, rate, review, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, tell a friend, tell an enemy. Today was a fun day. Chuck, thank you. Luis, Bob,
you guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone for tuning in, especially that young lady in France. Thank you so much. Val, thanks so much. We'll see you back here on Monday.